Most power rankings in League of Legends focus on who hits hardest or who destroys the most stuff, but raw destruction isn't even close to the scariest thing on this list. Today, I'm breaking down the 10 most powerful champions in League of Legends lore, ranked from strong to absolutely reality-breaking. And the number one spot? It's not even a fair conversation. Ryze didn't set out to become one of the most dangerous beings on Runeterra. He's a scholar, a researcher, a guy who just wanted to understand magic. But here's the thing about knowledge. Learn enough of it, and you stop being a student. You become a threat. Ryze has spent centuries hunting down the world runes, fragments of the magic used to create the world itself, not minor artifacts. These are objects capable of leveling entire civilizations if misused. While most champions are fighting one war in one kingdom, Ryze is waging a secret campaign across the entire planet to keep reality from tearing itself apart. His realm warp lets him open massive portals across vast distances, bending space in an instant. And his unnaturally long lifespan? No deals with ancient horrors. Centuries of direct exposure to world rune energy fundamentally changed him. Just a man who got so close to the source of creation that dying stopped applying to him. Now, fans debate whether guarding world-ending artifacts counts as raw power. And honestly, that's exactly why he's at number 10. His strength is potential, not demonstrated destruction. Carrying and unleashing are two very different things. Still, don't underestimate the guy who operates on a scale mortals literally cannot perceive. Everything only gets more insane from here. And speaking of insane, our next champion didn't just conquer kingdoms. He built his own afterlife and filled it with slaves. Up until now, we've been talking about power in terms of knowledge and awareness. Ryze sees timeline. He understands threats before they materialize. That's impressive. But Mordekaiser doesn't care about understanding threats. He is the threat. Over 1,500 years before the current timeline, long before Noxus and Demacia even existed as nations, this ancient warlord carved through entire civilizations using blood magic and necromantic metal sorcery. Not skirmishes, not border disputes, kingdom-ending conquest. Entire nations erased from the map by a single armored figure and the armies he raised from the dead. But here's where Mordekaiser separates himself from every other warlord in fantasy. He didn't just kill people, he built his own afterlife. Let that sink in for a second. Mordekaiser literally forged a pocket dimension called the Death Realm, a personal hell where millions of souls are trapped in eternal, obedient servitude. You die fighting him, and you don't get to rest. You don't move on. You become his property, forever. His armor is fused directly to his soul. Destroying it would destroy him, but nobody has ever managed it, not in over 1,000 years. He briefly co-ruled portions of Noxus alongside other immortal entities, and even they couldn't put him down. Now, fans argue he deserves a higher spot because his destruction is the most historically demonstrated on this entire list. And that's fair, but his realm-bound nature limits him compared to the cosmic threats we're building toward. Still, Mordekaiser is where this list stops feeling like a power ranking and starts feeling like a warning. And the next entry? He makes Mordekaiser's obsession look almost rational. Every other champion on this list wants power. Viego just wanted his wife back. And that's exactly what makes him the most dangerous. Over 1,000 years before the current timeline, Viego was a king who watched his wife Isolde die, and he refused to accept it. He traveled to the Blessed Isles, a sacred place of healing and ancient magic, and used forbidden blood magic to bring her back. Here's the thing, it worked. He actually succeeded. Isolde returned, but what came back wasn't Isolde. It was something twisted, something monstrous, a corrupted echo of the woman he loved. And in that moment of grief and horror, his magic detonated outward, transforming the entire Blessed Isles into what we now know as the Shadow Isles. Every living thing on those islands died, every soul was trapped, and the Black Mist was born. The Black Mist isn't just fog, it's a sentient, spreading corruption that transforms living beings into ruined creatures, turns entire regions into barren wastelands, and damages souls themselves. Not just bodies. Viego's consciousness is distributed across the mist, meaning you can't just kill him. He is the mist. Destroy one form, he reforms from another. He's functionally immortal in the worst possible way, and he's still searching for Isolde, still trying to fix what he broke. A man who loved one person so much, He accidentally created an existential threat to all life on Runeterra, and he can't even stop because the grief that drives him is baked into the curse itself. But his limitation is clear. He's tethered to the mist, bound to the Shadow Isle's reach, and the champion above him, he doesn't have limitations. He was literally built to kill gods. Every champion on this list earned their power. Aatrox was born into it, a noble warrior of ancient Shurima who underwent ascension through the sun disk, transformed into a god warrior with one job: defend the Empire against the Void, not negotiate with it, not survive it, destroy it. And here's the thing, he did exactly that for thousands of years. Aatrox isn't some random soldier who stumbled into power. He's a Darkin, one of the ascended god warriors of Shurima, who, after centuries of war against the Void, became corrupted by the very horrors they fought. And that corruption didn't make him weaker. It made him something far worse. His sword isn't just a weapon, it's a prison. His immortal essence is bound inside that blade. You can shatter his physical form, you can bury him, you can seal him away for centuries, but you cannot permanently kill him. He always comes back. Always. And every time he does, he's stronger. Aatrox feeds on conflict itself. The longer a war rages, the more powerful he becomes. Millennia of accumulated combat experience against opponents most beings can't even conceptualize. Entire armies erased. Civilizations toppled, not as collateral damage, but as the explicit goal. He's not a force of nature. He's a predator with intent. Now, fans love to debate this. Unkillable but containable versus raw, reality-warping power. And that's a fair argument. Aatrox is the absolute ceiling of what direct combat can achieve in Runeterra. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is scarier to face in a straight fight. But that's exactly the point. He represents the peak of physical, grounded power. The entries ahead of him, they don't operate on the same playing field, starting with something that doesn't just consume armies. It consumes entire realities. Everything we've talked about so far, powerful beings operating within reality. Belveth doesn't operate within reality. She eats it. And I mean that literally. Belveth isn't just another void creature. She's not some monster that crawled out of the purple dimension to cause problems. She's described as an aspect of the void's true nature made manifest, a being that transcends the void itself rather than simply belonging to it. Think about that for a second. The void is already one of the most terrifying forces in all of Runeterra's lore, and Belveth is above it. Here's where it gets genuinely mind-bending. Belveth possesses an infinite hunger that grows stronger the more she consumes. She's already devoured entire alternate dimensions and realities inside the void. Not cities, not continents, dimensions. Her consciousness exists across infinite parallel versions of herself simultaneously, which means traditional containment is mathematically impossible. You can't trap something that exists everywhere at once across infinite realities. But wait, she doesn't just consume, she rewrites. Local physics, biology, entire landscapes, all transformed into void-touched abominations under her influence. Before she even arrived, multiple reality anchors specifically designed to keep her out were destroyed. The universe literally built walls to stop her, and she tore them down before showing up. Now, I should be honest, Belveth's lore is newer than most champions on this list, and some of her specific mechanics are vaguer than older entries. The community genuinely debates whether she belongs above beings like Lissandra or Kindred, but that uncertainty actually makes her scarier. We don't fully understand what she is yet, and that might be the point. She's not conquering a world. She's eating reality itself, and infinite versions of her are doing the exact same thing right now. But if an entity consuming all of existence sounds terrifying, wait until you meet something even older, something that feeds on the one emotion every living thing shares. Here's the thing about every other champion on this list. They have origins. They have timelines. They have mechanics you can point to and say, that's where the power comes from. Fiddlesticks doesn't give you that luxury. This entity is old. Not Mordekaiser 1,000 years ago old. Not even Aatrox multiple eons old. Fiddlesticks predates recorded human civilization on Runeterra. He's so ancient that his existence is likely what spawned the archetype of the Scarecrow itself, appearing across cultures that had zero contact with each other. Every civilization independently feared the same thing, because the same thing was visiting all of them. And his power source? Fear. Literally fear. Fiddlesticks feeds on terror and grows stronger with every frightened thought directed at him, which creates the most terrifying feedback loop in all of League lore. People hear about him, they get scared, he gets stronger, more people hear about him. His legend is his power. The story fuels the monster. But here's where it gets complicated. Fiddlesticks doesn't fully exist in the physical world. He operates in a partially spiritual state, meaning conventional weapons are largely useless against him. His presence alone causes entire ecosystems to collapse as every living creature flees. And those multiple scarecrow sightings across different regions? They might all be connected to one unified consciousness. Fiddlesticks might exist everywhere that fear exists, simultaneously. Now, full transparency. Riot keeps his lore intentionally vague. His exact origin, his true form, his power ceiling, none of it is spelled out clearly. Some of this is implied rather than confirmed. But honestly, that ambiguity might be the point. You can't define the boundaries of something that feeds on the unknown. Oh, and fun thought. You're thinking about him right now. Technically that counts. But if a being powered by fear sounds dangerous, wait until you meet someone who made a deal with entities that make Fiddlesticks look like a campfire story. Lysandra is the most morally bankrupt champion on this list, and that's saying something when you're sharing a ranking with an ancient god-killing weapon and a creature eating reality itself. Nearly 10,000 years ago, Lysandra made a deal with the Watchers, entities so old they predate civilization, predate recorded history, predate basically everything we understand about Runeterra. And the price of that deal? Her own people. She imprisoned the Frostguard in magical stasis, froze her entire civilization in ice, and used them as bargaining chips to maintain her side of the pact. And she hasn't flinched once in over 9 millennia. But here's the thing. Lysandra's personal magic is already terrifying. She can manipulate weather at continental scales. She can freeze entire armies in seconds. Whole battalions reduced to ice sculptures before they even realize what's happening. That alone puts her above most champions. But her real power isn't her own magic. It's what she can access through the Pact. Lysandra is essentially a bridge between Runeterra and something so cosmically powerful that breaking the agreement would cause a dimensional catastrophe. The Watchers give her foresight from beyond linear time, knowledge that rivals Ryze's multiversal awareness, but comes from entities even older than him. She's not just seeing the future, she's receiving information from beings that exist outside of time entirely. Now, fans love to debate whether borrowed power actually counts. Aatrox is self-contained. Belveth generates her own infinite hunger. Lysandra is dependent on an external deal. Fair point, but here's the counter-argument. The scale of what she can borrow absolutely dwarfs most self-contained powers on this list. When your phone a friend is a pre-civilization cosmic horror, the distinction between your power and their power starts to feel pretty meaningless. She sacrificed everything, her sisters, her people, her humanity, and she'd do it again tomorrow without hesitation. That's not weakness. That's the coldest calculation in Runeterra's history. But if Lysandra's borrowed cosmic power is impressive, wait until you meet someone who doesn't need to borrow anything, because the power is her. Most beings on this list earn their power through sacrifice, corruption, or cosmic bargains. Zoe got hers because a celestial entity looked at a mischievous teenager and said, yeah, she's the one. And honestly, that might be the scariest thing on this entire list. Zoe is the aspect of Twilight, a celestial vessel operating on a plane of existence so far above mortals that comparing them is almost insulting. Every champion we've talked about so far, the warlords, the god weapons, the primordial horrors, they all exist within the rules of Runeterra. Zoe exists above those rules. She doesn't break them. She just doesn't acknowledge they apply to her. Here's the concept that makes Zoe genuinely hard to wrap your head around. She perceives time and space the way you perceive a drawing on a piece of paper. Forward, backward, sideways, all at once. Causality, the idea that one thing leads to another in a linear chain, is essentially meaningless to her. She can see every branching future simultaneously, access pocket dimensions on a whim, and trap beings in bubbles of altered time, like she's putting toys back in a box, and she does it all while acting like a hyperactive kid on a sugar rush. That's the part that breaks people's brains. Zoe giggles, she pranks, she treats cosmic-level threats like minor inconveniences. Fans constantly debate whether her playful behavior means she's holding back, operating at a fraction of her true power. But there's another explanation that's way more unsettling. What if this is full power for a being at her tier? When nothing in the universe genuinely threatens you, why would you be serious? Her goofiness isn't a limitation. It's a symptom of how far above everything else she actually sits. She's also part of a hierarchy of celestial aspects monitoring Runeterra, meaning her already absurd personal power is the floor, not the ceiling. She can theoretically call upon that entire network. But at least Zoe, for all her cosmic authority, still has a personality. Still laughs, still plays, still chooses to interact with the world like it matters. The next entry doesn't have that luxury, because the next entry is the thing every living being in Runeterra eventually faces, whether they want to or not. Every other champion on this list has power. Kindred doesn't need it, because Kindred isn't a god of death. They aren't a spirit that collects souls or a reaper that swings a scythe. Kindred is death, not a representation, not a metaphor. The actual, literal, universal force of ending made into two figures, Lamb and Wolf, who appear at the moment everything stops. And that distinction matters more than you think. Every being we've talked about so far operates within time. They manipulate it, resist it, perceive across it. Kindred exists outside of it entirely. Temporal magic doesn't touch them. Rise's multiversal awareness? Irrelevant. Zoe's dimensional perception? Doesn't apply. You cannot outrun, outthink, or outmaneuver something that isn't bound by the same rules of reality you are. Kindred doesn't chase you through time. They're already at the end of it, waiting. Here's what makes them genuinely terrifying. Kindred doesn't fight. They don't need to. They are present at every single death across every region and every dimension simultaneously. Not through magic, not through some ability. Death is omnipresent because death is omnipresent. That's it. That's the whole mechanic. Even immortal champions, beings who have cheated death for centuries, recognize Kindred and fear them. Not because Kindred could beat them in combat, but because combat is irrelevant. You don't fight inevitability. You just delay it. Now. Here's the biggest debate on this entire list, and I want to be honest about it. A lot of people argue Kindred should be number one, and the argument is genuinely compelling. Death is a universal constant. It applies to everything. Stars die. Galaxies die. Reality itself will eventually end. If Kindred represents that finality, then nothing, not even a star-forging dragon god, escapes them. But here's the counter-argument, and it's the reason they're sitting at number 2. Aurelian Sol creates reality. Kindred ends it. And you can't end something that was never created in the first place. Creation is cosmologically superior to entropy, because entropy requires something to exist first. Without creation, death has nothing to claim. Both sides have merit. But the dragon who builds the universe gets the edge over the force that eventually closes it. And speaking of that dragon, Aurelian Sol. Every champion on this list has done something terrifying. Viego corrupted an entire continent. Belveth is eating dimensions for breakfast. Kindred is literally death. But here's the thing. Every single one of them exists inside a universe that this dragon personally built. Aurelian Sol is a star forger. Not a title, not a metaphor. He literally creates stars. Over 20,000 years ago, while Runeterra was still forming, Aurelian Sol was out there shaping the structure of reality itself, forging celestial bodies into existence with the same effort you or I would use to stretch in the morning. Creating a sun isn't a feat for him, it's a Tuesday, and his power isn't borrowed. It isn't tied to a pact, a weapon, or some ancient ritual. He is the power, a being of pure stellar energy and magic that exists partially outside of material reality altogether. He can restructure planetary orbits. He can reshape gravitational systems. His influence on the cosmos predates the celestial aspect's involvement with Runeterra entirely. He was doing this before any of them showed up. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. What about Kindred? Death beats everything, right? Here's where I have to respectfully disagree. Kindred ends things. Aurelian Sol creates them. And in Runeterra's cosmology, creation is the higher tier. Without creation, there is nothing for death to claim. You can't end a universe that was never built. Kindred's inevitability is terrifying, absolutely. But it only matters because Aurelian Sol made something worth ending in the first place. But the detail that truly seals this ranking isn't what Aurelian Sol has done. It's what he hasn't done. He chooses not to involve himself in mortal conflicts, the wars, the ruination, the void incursions. All of it happening on a world he could reshape on a whim. The only reason Runeterra still exists in its current form is because he hasn't decided to change it. His non-involvement isn't passivity, it is the lore event. The most powerful thing in this universe is a dragon who simply does not care enough to end the world. Let that sink in. Viego's Black Mist, Kindred's inevitability, Belveth consuming dimensions, Fiddlesticks feeding on fear since before recorded history. All of it, every single threat on this list, exists within a universe that Aurelion Sol helped build. That's the scale we're talking about. Now, I already know the comments are going to be a war zone. Some of you think Kindred should be number 1. Some of you are furious Aatrox isn't higher. And honestly, I want to hear it. Drop your ranking below and tell me exactly where I got it wrong. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.